We're back on the SportsMax Zone. We're starting this segment with cricket. Of course, the West Indies are playing an inter-squad match at Old Trafford, getting themselves ready for the first test match against England starting next week. And of course, the opening day on Monday was rained out, but there was some play today, delayed. They started after lunch, and at stumps, Jason Holder's 11 closed at 120 for 5 of 34 overs. Joshua De Silva, the young TNT wicketkeeper batsman, unbeaten on 60. Sunil Ambris made 25. Shamar Holder, the Barbadian pacer, former World Cup youth winning pacer Shamar Holder, 2 for 15 of 5 overs, and the TNT pacer Anderson Phillip picking up 1 for 9 of 6 overs, and reports are bowled splendidly today for the Craig Brathwaite 11. So Holder's 11 then, 120 for 5 of 34 overs. Joshua De Silva undefeated on 60 at the moment. Now, the feisty character Ben Stokes, it's now confirmed, will lead England against the Jason Holder-led West Indies in their biosecure 3-test series starting on the 8th of July. The 29-year-old Stokes, who has featured in 63 test matches since making his debut back in 2013, is coming off a remarkable 12-month period which saw him winning the 50-over World Cup final for England and leading the English to a stunning one-wicket victory of Australia in the Headingley Ashes test. Now, for the West Indies, there have been calls for a 4-pace attack, but at whose expense? What will the final 11 look like? Will Shamar Holder make his debut? To answer these questions and more, SportsMax Zone's English-based cricket correspondent, David Brooke. David, always great to have you on the SportsMax Zone. We are closing in now on a week till this biosecure opening test match will be historic because of how it will happen. What's the latest in the West Indies camp, and how happy are the Caribbean boys?
Well, all's good on the West Indies camp. I think they're being well looked after in their biosecure environment at Old Trafford. They're even getting some Caribbean food along the way. I guess the most concerning aspect will be the form of the skipper, Jason Holder, who's just coming back still from injury. And you know, they had the second and final warm-up match today, as you've just been talking about, and Jason Holder didn't figure in your card just then because he was out for one. So he's been, you know, it's given he was out for, I think, a first bowler in the first warm-up match. That's probably going to be a concern. But, you know, the bowlers are firing, and it's, as you say, there's a choice, quite a hard choice to be made on the selection front for West Indies. And, you know, regarding England, I mean, the big talking point here is Ben Stokes, going to be captaining, as you say. He's never captained. He's the first man to be appointed who's never captained a side in first-class cricket or one-day internationals or T20s. He's never captained a side. So first England captain in history to come into a game like this without any captaincy experience at all. But certainly an amazing recovery in fortune for Stokes. You know, 3 years ago, the guy was outcast after that incident in outside a Bristol nightclub where he was involved in a street brawl. He was charged and then suspended from the England side. He's come back a changed man, and as you say, his feats over the last year were extraordinary. So he'll be in good heart, but a big test for him to go into this first test as a first-time captain. Yeah,
and of course the first all-rounder since Andy Flintoff to be the captain of an England team as well, going into a test match.
Well, that didn't end too well, did it? Flintoff was never a particularly successful England captain. Neither, of course, was Ian Botham. You go back there, he was a disastrous captain, even he, by his own admission, and only recovered his form when he gave up the captaincy and Mike Brearley took over. So whether Stokes, you know, will this put too much pressure on England's most important player? That's an interesting one. And the memories of 2019 Bridgetown must surely be haunting the England inexperienced top order. When, if you remember, not so long ago that West Indies rolled over England in that first test match in Bridgetown, Barbados. And, you know, there'd be one or two players at that England top order, like Rory Burns, who didn't have a good tour of the Caribbean, will be looking to prove himself. But, you know, it's an inexperienced England top order. Sibley, Burns, Denley. These are not familiar names. There's going to be no Joe Root. So there could be a debut for Dan Lawrence from Essex, or Zach Crawley might be retained. These are not names that are going to, you know, put shivers up the spine of any West Indies fan. So yeah, it's all set for a very, very, very interesting first Test match.
David, this is something that, players barely speak out about. Stuart Broad, he actually came out and he said, he thinks that the energy will be missing. He'll definitely be missing the crowd when the test tour starts. He says he'll be missing the buzz, the atmosphere, so much so that he actually spoke to his psychologist about it. Do you think that this will be affecting him? He said it will be playing on his mind.
Stuart Broad, interesting, Maria. Yeah, Stuart Broad certainly is someone who likes the buzz of the crowd. He responds to the momentum that builds up. He's very much a momentum bowler. And yeah, he feeds off that febrile atmosphere that develops during one of his spells. Other players will shrink away from the crowds, but Broad is someone who likes the crowd in order to perform. So that could be a leveller. Without that England crowd behind the English, it might just even things out a bit. And certainly one or two of the England boys, Stokes as well. Ben Stokes used to being hero worshipped by the England crowd. The fact that there's not going to be anyone watching is going to cast a slight, unusual and unpredictable atmosphere, that's for sure.
The former Windies coach, Toby Radford, in his interview with you, said that it will come down to the best of the three. We didn't hear your opinion on the matter. What do you think about that? You see that happening?
I do see it happening. Yeah, I do. As always, every England home series against West Indies, the West Indies are written off by the local media here. And same thing is happening again. All the talk is of England are favourites. The bookmakers don't give West Indies a chance, 6-1 outsiders. I do give them a chance. And I think there's every prospect. I'm kind of agreeing with Toby that I see this potentially going to a deciding third test. And I don't think it's beyond the West Indies to nick a test with their bowling lineup. Kemar Roach, I'm really looking forward to seeing him again. He always brings out his best against England. 18 wickets in that last series in the Caribbean, 13 apiece. And, he's got to be feared. And it's a question of an embarrassment of luxuries in terms of that bowling attack. Who will West Indies go with? Gonna love to see Alzari Joseph. I think he has to play. He's a less of a known quantity to the England boys. So I think if West Indies can get amongst the England batsmen, knock them over early, they've got a chance of taking a test match. Of course, where are the runs going to come from? That's the big question. I'd love to see Jason Holder recapturing the form that he showed in Bridgetown, Barbados earlier last year when he got a double century, of course. We always think of him as a bowler who bats a bit. He's coming off that double ton. And hopefully he can recover from his injury and get some form out in the middle during the second innings of his practice match.
All right, Wayne Lewis here. Let me ask a question. Looking at the England team at the moment, they haven't had a lot of cricket going into this series. Neither has West Indies. Do you think that is West Indies' best chance of really going up quickly against this England lineup, considering the fact that their inactiveness for such a long time? Do you think it's going to play on their minds? And of course, you look at their batting in the middle, in particular, the English team, that not a lot of, what's the word should I use now? Not a lot of positivity there. In other words, a lot of these youngsters are looking to get themselves established at the international level. Do you see West Indies using that opportunity in a positive way to move beyond that and trying to stick it to them early?
Yeah, I do, Wayne. I hope they don't follow the World Cup pattern and think they can just bounce people out. I'm not sure that's going to work. If they bowl to a plan, and I think there is a frailty in the England top order. Of course, two of those inexperienced players you mentioned there, Dom Sibley and Ollie Pope, have both scored Test match centuries in the last year. So there is a lot of optimism in the England camp that finally they've got a batting order and a Test match batting order they can build on. But having seen West Indies blowing England away last year, I can see that happening again. And if West Indies put the ball in the right places, there is a weakness there. Rory Burns really struggled in the Caribbean. It's one thing, he had a good Ashes series last year, but when the pressure is on, if West Indies can get them 3 or 4 down before lunch on the first day, be a good toss to put them in if the weather's like it is today. It's been very overcast and cloudy. Who knows what it's going to be like by next Wednesday. We had a miniature heat wave here last week, but that's gone away now, and it's much more familiar conditions. First test down in Southampton, in the south of England, so they might get better weather there. So we'll see. The toss could be a vital one.
Okay, I was going to ask you that very question about the conditions. What's the weather like? Is it going to be a sunny summer? We really see a lot of rain. We know the first day of this warm-up game was rained out. That tells you that, typical English weather. But looking at our team now, there's a lot of talk about, West Indies going with a 4-pronged pace attack. But of course, Jimbo has done well in Test cricket so far. He's very young in his Test career. Do you see West Indies really going into that series with 4 fast bowlers and leaving out this off-spinner?
I hope they don't, Wayne. I'd like to see Raheem Cornwall play. There's been a lot of attention, as you can imagine, on him already from the English media, intrigued by this sort of 22-stone guy who can spin the ball so much. Toby Radford was telling me that, he's been very impressed with the way that Raheem Cornwall can spin the ball. So, I hope they put him in at number 9 and resist the temptation to go for Shannon Gable. I mean, Shannon Gable's in the reserves. The coach, Phil Simmons, has been sort of talking him up, but just a bit worried that, Gable may not last a whole Test match. So, no, I'd like to see Raheem Cornwall at 9. I mean, England will certainly play a spinner and 3 quicks. So, puts the pressure on Joseph, Holder and Roach, but, I mean, I'd like to see some variety there and have a Cornwall with Chase. I know, obviously, Roston Chase had that amazing Test match, didn't he, in Barbados with the 8 wickets. But, they're probably an exception to the rule, whereas Cornwall's coming off that very good performance against Afghanistan, and he deserves his chance.
David, in your interview with Radford, he also spoke about Brathwaite's footwork and that being, the reason why most times he fails. You're close to the action. Did you notice any sort of improvement where that is concerned, the technique of Craig Brathwaite?
Yeah, I did. And, it's just a question of a mind thing with Craig, I think. He had that run of poor form. He got a score in the first warm-up match. And, I think he's still in touch with Toby Radford, actually. I think they do still talk. So I'm sure that Toby will be sending him the odd text to remind him to get these basics right. I mean, at his best, he's got that Jeffrey Boycott dour stayability. Let's not forget the last time in England, second Test match, Brathwaite nearly got 2 centuries in the match. Shea Hope did get 2 centuries in the match. So a lot resting on those two, Shea Hope and Craig Brathwaite, to hit form and not to hang their bats out to dry, as Brathwaite can get into the habit of doing. I mean, he'll know what's required of him, I'm sure. And certainly Toby Radford will be giving him the odd reminder, probably. I mean, especially now he's got his online batting clinic up and running.
All right, David, I mean, you talked about that England is going into this first Test match as the favourite, right? They're playing at home, their conditions. If England should do well and win the first Test match, who are the players you'll see in that England lineup who are expected to come through in a big way to allow them to win that first Test match?
I think that a lot is thought of Ollie Pope. He's very much the new batting sensation. He showed what he was capable of in the Ashes series. And of course, Ben Stokes is the talisman, having Lance mentioned his heroics last summer. I mean, that stayed in the mind. He was voted BBC Sports Personality of the Year, the first cricketer to win that award since Freddie Flintoff. So he has captured the public's imagination for those sort of heroics. He is a changed man. Since that instant, he's been the very soul of responsibility. Got a very good defensive game. Do you remember when he won that Test match against Australia, the first part of his innings at Headingley was very, very slow and very solid. He's got a very solid defence, but my God, he can go through the gears, as they say. So Stokes and Pope, I would say, would be the ones to watch with the bat. I think both coaches have said the bowling is better than the batting. I think the bowling on both sides is better than the batting. High-class bowling attack from England with Anderson, Broad, Jofra Archer, Sam Curran, Chris Wokes, one of those two. So lots of interest. And the bowlers, it looks like the bowlers will dominate the batsmen. But yeah, odds-wise, England are nailed-on favourites. The bookmakers are not taking any money for West Indies, apart from mine. Small wager has gone on at 6-1. Come on, it's only a 2-horse race, only 3 possible results. So a little bit of mine has gone on at 6-1. West Indies, though, Toby said slow starters sometimes in a away series. Let's see what they've got to get off to their tracks. Only a 3-match series. They have to get off to a good start this Wednesday.
So is there any real interest in the Test series so far? Yes, I know the COVID-19 has taken over the world, but what's the interest like in this Test series in terms of the supporters? And are they happy to see some cricket, and are they hoping to tune in and watch it on television?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, it's building up. I mean, the world has been starved of cricket, not just in this country, but everywhere. So I think there'll be a lot of interest in this series. You know, let's face it, taking place in the height of the summer. Last time West Indies have played here in July for some time. Last time they came here, they had to play a day-night first Test match in Birmingham in the freezing cold at the end of May. So this is back to their midsummer position, some would say, where they belong. So yeah, there's a lot of interest building up in a summer where cricket fans have been starved of any sort of action. There's been no domestic cricket. So both teams coming in without any first-class cricket behind them recently. West Indies would have played more recently, their first-class tournament. So you could argue should be in better form than the English. So yeah, a lot unpredictable, just like the weather. I think there's a lot of unpredictability about this series, but it is capturing the public attention, even though no one's going to be able to watch it, unfortunately, in the ground. But there'll be decent audiences, the rest of it, yeah.
Okay, David, now, will there be any casualties should West Indies win this series? We saw that happen some years ago in the West Indies when West Indies beat England 1-0. I think they drew the series, 1-1, sorry. Well, I think Cook was the captain, and we have seen where the coach lost his job and so on, and they were threatened almost by the chairman of the ECB that win or else. Will we see any casualty in this series should West Indies win?
Well, that's a long way ahead to look ahead, Wayne. I mean, the last casualty I saw was Steve Smith when he was poleaxed by Jofra Archer. He was a casualty taken off with concussion in the Ashes last summer. His replacement, if you remember, Marcus Labuschagne, came out and Archer knocked him over as well. So, yeah, I think Jofra, we haven't sort of specifically mentioned him, but obviously he'll probably have an extra ounce of pace for some of his former colleagues from that West Indies under-19 team and the Bajans in the side, of which there are many. So when talking about, too early to talk about England casualties, I think both teams will be happy to get through the first test unscathed.
Well, that's not exactly what I was asking, David. I was asking the casualties in terms of any of the players losing their position in the team or being punished for not performing well. That's basically the word. When I said casualty, that's actually what I meant. Would we see wholesale changes within the England setup should West Indies win the series?
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you meant, Wayne. I was just taking you on there. But I think it's too early to I know we're not the Premier League. You don't write off the manager before the series has even started. I mean, there is a new manager, coach in the England setup at Silverwood. Graham Thorpe, a familiar name to you as batting coach. There's a lot of experience to draw on. Too early to talk about people being axed that way. I mean, there's too many what ifs there because it's a big hurdle. The odds are stacked against West Indies. Should England, okay, I'll follow your line of logic. Should England lose this series, there'll be reviews and reconsiderations and other words beginning with re. But that's a long way off. We haven't even had the first ball yet. So England go into this favourites and they will be feeling optimistic.
David Brooke, as usual, great talking to you. You'll be our man covering this series, which the entire cricketing world is glued on because it's going to be the first opportunity for international cricket since COVID-19. Thanks for joining us, Dave.
You're welcome, Lance.
All right, moving on. Former Minister of Sport in Sri Lanka, Mahindananda Aluthgamaj, has ordered a criminal probe into allegations that Sri Lanka sold the 2011 World Cup final to India. And he has the backing on that of the 1996 World Cup winning captain Arjuna Ranatunga, who previously asked for a probe into the matter. There's your summary score for that World Cup final. Sri Lanka 274 for 6 off their 50 overs. Mahela Jayawarden a 103 not out, but the Indians knocked it off with in the penultimate over with Mahindra Singh Dhoni getting 91, 277 for 4 of 48.2 overs. Now the Sri Lankan cricket fraternity, no strangers to corruption probes, as they were linked to match fixing ahead of the 2018 test against England. And earlier this year, the cricket board said cricket's governing body, the ICC, was investigating 3 unnamed former players on corruption claims. This is a story that has been in the news in the past 24 hours. Hard to come to grips with a country match fixing in a World Cup final, which so many players live and dream to win.
Well, they say it's hard to come to, but you know, in situations like this, people can do anything to win. For me, it didn't come as a surprise, actually, because we said it in the opening. Sri Lanka has a history of getting involved in these things. The issue for me is that so long after this is brought to the forefront again, obviously, there's a former Sri Lankan captain, Aravinda De Silva. He's also saying that, you know, this is not true. And he's saying that we should investigate it because these lies can torment the players that did well. You read from the scorecard that Mahendra Singh Dhoni got 91. I think in that same match, Gautam Mahabir, he got 97 for India. And I mean, these are allegations that will hang over their head forever. These scores will be reduced to nothing if the investigation is not carried out. So I think they should go ahead with the investigation, which they are doing, and let's see what comes out of it.
Yeah, well, the former captain Arjuna Ranatungawayne, as I just mentioned, had previously asked for a probe into the situation there. So the former sports minister is not the first person to draw attention to this match.
Lance, this is 9 years ago. I can't imagine that, I mean, getting to the World Cup final, these things happen almost like once in a lifetime.
Yeah.
I mean, money isn't everything. I can't imagine that they'll go and work with India to say, listen, pay us X amount and we'll throw the game for you. I mean, that to me is just preposterous. I think there's almost witch hunt, if you will. 9 years ago, and you're going to throw away the finals of the World Cup? There's a lot of money involved in terms of the team winning. There's a lot of prize money there to even win the tournament, much less to get even to the finals. For you to say that an entire team would come together and throw away the finals of the World Cup.
And the former sports minister saying that, this is not any and anybody, this is your former sports minister that has come out and say this, which is the bigger issue, I think.
Well, Mariah, I think you're correct. I think the issue needs to be investigated because if it is that it isn't true, which our panel here is suggesting that it's preposterous to think that it is true, I think conclusively some investigations need to come out to suggest that it was investigated and it's just a myth and nothing of the sort happened, so that people won't keep making these allegations, because it's a horrifying allegation that a team would throw a World Cup final.
And as I said, it reduces all the players that performed well. Like, it takes away from that.
Listen, man, it's 9 years ago, man. I mean, where would they start in terms of their investigations anyway? People might have died between now and then. 2011, now you're in 2020, you're going into the second half. Yeah. We're almost at the second half of 2020. You're going to start an investigation for something that happened 9 years ago in the finals of the World Cup. I could understand if they say you throw away a game in the preliminary rounds because these things is quite possible. But I can't imagine that I would work so hard to get to the finals with all the accolades and excitement of representing your country.
It's not any team.
Against India of all teams. I mean, you know, and for you to throw away a game for money, I hard to believe that. I mean, I can't imagine that would have happened.
Yeah, or still a lot more to come on the SportsMax Zone. We have just been through the first half hour of the 90-minute program, and still to come our review of what has happened in Europe today with La Liga. We'll also give you Serie A updates and what happened in the English Premier League with Man United and Brighton and Hove Albion. And the story I told you about at the top of the show about some statistics showing that commentators in Europe are